I'm Peter Hinton. I'm Chief Executive of the Institute for Archaeologists. Yeah, as Chief Executive, my principal role is to look after the strategic plan, so I carry the strategic plan around with me wherever I go. I also have a lot of involvement in policy matters and in staff management matters, but principally it's carrying around the strategic plan and the risk register and looking after the forward direction of the Institute. I've been at the Institute now for 15 years, which is a very long time to be doing one job. My defence is that I don't think it has been one job. The Institute has grown very significantly over that period of time, and we've made the transition that Palm refers to as the professionalisation of professions. So we're now run and managed by professional staff, but we still have the governance structure that we had when I was appointed in 1997. The governance is the responsibility of the council. Our council is our board of directors. We have 21 elected council members, and they have the power to co-opt another 4. So it's quite a large council. It's not as large as some, but it is large for a board of directors. To manage that, something like 20 years ago or so, a Finance and General Purposes Committee was set up of the officers of the council. So that's the chair, the secretary, the treasurer and 3 vice chairs. That later became an executive committee that still exists. In theory, the executive committee takes on a lot of the day-to-day issues of the company, and it was set up before there were paid professional staff. In practice, while it is a subcommittee of council, the balance of power is very much the other way round, and the executive committee can tend to think that it is running the institute and it needs to manage its way round and past the elected council. And that is one of the reasons why we're promoting a change. The other is size. The kind of structure that we're looking at would be to have a smaller board of directors and a much larger advisory council or advisory assembly. We're still playing around trying to find the right terminology for it, but it's something very similar to the cupped hands model. Communication between the executive committee and council can be a little bit challenging. I think we have a problem that many organisations have when they are managed by volunteers, is that people forget between meetings quite how far they got at the last meeting. And we often get the executive committee, which meets more frequently, thinking that it's one council over on some matter, and actually council has yet to discuss the matter. So occasionally noses can be put out of joint. So communications is very important to get right, and it's something that we need to do more work on. The other thing that we've found, and this is another reason for proposing a change to the governance structure, is because our council is too unwieldy really to act as a board of directors. A lot of the decisions are discussed and pre-digested by the executive committee, which then presents them to the council. Council comes at these issues cold, is not quite sure that it wants to sign up to the solution that's being proposed to it, maybe a little bit suspicious of the solution that's being proposed to it, and will ask for it to be deferred to a later meeting. Before the next council meeting, at which it will be discussed again, the executive committee looks at it one more time to get the choreography right for the council meeting, and then a month after that it goes to the council meeting. And normally at that stage it's a shoo-in, it's just breezed through because all the anxieties have dissipated, not because anything has actually changed other than time has passed. But what this means is that council thinks that it's looking at an issue twice, the executive committee and the staff end up looking at it 4 times, and that's an inefficient use of our very limited resources. Working with our council has been on occasion challenging, but by and large very rewarding. I think it's one of those issues that you get with working with volunteers, that sometimes you're very grateful for their input and sometimes you're not. Most of them are brilliant, I have to say, really committed, really keen. Some people have struggled, in spite of all the help that we've tried to offer them, struggled to understand quite what their fiduciary responsibilities are as directors of the company. And we still have issues with people representing different viewpoints or different areas or different parts of the profession, and indeed trying to organise slates of people to be elected to council to promote a particular agenda. That's been troublesome, but I feel that having a council really adds value to the concern. It gives me some democratic cover for the things that I do. By and large, the council does go with the leadership that I provide, but often they will add additional comments, propose different ways forward, and there's some really useful and helpful things that have come forward from council members. So they are people. People can be challenging, but by and large it's been a very rewarding experience, and I wouldn't like to have an organisation without a strong and opinionated council. I think it's very important to have all the different institutions of governance working together. So the council or the board of directors has to work well with any advisory body. It also has to work really well with its staff, and it has to work well with committees. And the responsibility matrix and the decision-making matrix between those different bodies needs to be clear. It's also very important that the directors or the council members know what they're there for. Where we've had most difficulty is where people have been confused about their role. Some of them I've been not quite sure what the role of the institute itself is. They are members of the board of directors of a professional institute for archaeologists. Their passion is archaeology. They know all about archaeology, but they don't necessarily know a lot about professional institutes. So we've had to do quite a lot of voluntary and involuntary induction to try and help them through that process. It's also very important that they remain aware of the strategic plan, and I can't expect them to hold all of that in their heads. That's my job, but I do have to remember to continue to remind them that we're working to a strategic plan and reassure them that the course of action that we're taking has been designed, has been thought through, and that we know where we're going. I think those are probably the key issues for me. One of the issues we're working with at the moment is what exactly is the relationship between this wider advisory council and the board of directors. Initially, we were quite clear that the board of directors would have legal responsibility for the company and that the advisory council would be exactly that, purely advisory. We then started to think, and council started to think, about what safeguards there would be in the event of what would in the future be a smaller group of directors going rogue, following a particular agenda and not acting in the best interests of the institute as a whole. What we started to think about then was possible safeguards whereby potentially the board of directors could, the assembly could trigger an EGM or in some way call the directors to account. Then we explored that further and we started giving the board, in our minds, we gave them slightly more powers for setting the agenda and for deciding on overall policy and strategy. My big concern now, and it's one that is shared by our executive committee, that's the inner circle, is that we're in danger of creating too many safeguards and that we're actually going to get an organisation that is ungovernable. And we've been looking at the way American government is or isn't working at the moment as perhaps being an illustration of what can go wrong if you have too many safeguards. So we're now going to go back to our council and ask to have some of its aspirations for the representative assembly scaled right back into so that they only have limited powers to intervene in cases of real emergency. These are the kind of issues that I think are going to slow down our process of transition, and I think making sure that whatever protocols that are devised for communications between the two bodies actually work will take us a lot of time. So I don't know how long it's going to take for this thing to bed down. I would like to get as much of the negotiations and as much of the detailed guidance notes sorted out before we make the move, but clearly there will be a bedding down period afterwards.